Hi, this is Francis Hayden reading my most recent blog post from today. How Rainn Wilson's Baha'i Blogcast gives me a timely kick in the pants. Personal reflections on and reactions to this somewhat obscure gem on the internet. Rainn Wilson is the actor behind Dwight Schrute, one of the lead characters in the sitcom The Office, U.S. version. He's one of a relatively small number of Baha'i celebrities that I can bring up in explaining my religion, so I love to throw his name around and brag about him. I recently returned to exploring his remarkable collection of candid, intimate, streaming podcast-style interviews with highly accomplished members of my faith community, most of whom I had never heard of, as an alternative to watching MSNBC, which had started to sound stale. It also started to fail to give me that wake me up lift in the morning as I prepared for work. Now comprising 66 episodes, stretching from the first one in 2016, Rainn describes his aims this way in the introduction to each interview. In this series of podcasts, I interview members of the Baha'i faith and friends from all over the world about their hearts and minds and souls, their spiritual journeys, and what they're interested in and what makes them tick. The content has been riveting for me, I think both because of the quality of the guests, but also Rainn's discipline and refinement over so many interviews in handling them such that they shine at their best. The podcast appears to have essentially no editing, and despite this, the pieces still appear to be remarkably free of the detritus of long, uncut Skype interviews. Now to my reactions. As a preface, I have to tell you a bit about my personal situation. I am a psychiatrist, not probably the kind you imagine from the typical media portrayals. My patients do not lie down on a couch, and I do not practice psychoanalytic psychotherapy. Mostly I do psychopharmacology, or what is commonly called med management. To me, it is a sacred calling, and I work from morning until night, late at night, 5 nights a week, and some Saturdays as well. On about 5 weekends a month, I also hang out on call in a state-run children's psychiatric hospital from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., where the work is much less intense, and I have time to write. But back to the topic. My reactions to listening to these Baha'i blogcasts can be grouped into those I'm cool with and those I'm not proud of. In comparison with Rainn's guests, I'm not a celebrity, not even within the Baha'i community. I've never written a book, nor gone on tour, nor founded a nonprofit, nor received a humanitarian award, nor won any type of popular acclaim. I'm about half okay with this, more I suppose than in the past, as I slowly make peace with what my life has become, and I understand better my duties and obligations. I've been tempted and have often complained to friends and colleagues that as a psychiatrist, most of the stories that I have to tell do not belong to me, that my treatment successes are necessarily hidden for reasons of confidentiality, etc. But this is kind of a cop-out, since plenty of mental health practitioners have achieved another sort of self-actualization via the writing of books on various topics, even disguising their patients' stories enough to publish them for the purpose of teaching others. I think, however, the main cause of my absence of public expression and my own perception of my mediocrity is a feeling of complacency and inertia that I often ponder, and for which this blog is an attempt to break free of. My feelings of real wonder and awe, listening to Rainn's guests talk about their lives and work, heighten in me the desire to also be of service to humanity, using the lessons of my own life. But more fundamental, I realize, is the desire not for attention and acclaim, but rather to manifest a lifelong dream of the connecting of all humanity in a glorious celebration of our oneness and solidarity. As flowers effortlessly exude fragrance, I connect people and ideas, and have done so from the first time I broke free of my social isolation and loneliness sometime during adolescence. It is immensely inspiring to listen to Michael Penn, Rhett Diesner, Tierney Sutton, Justin Baldoni, Laylee Miller-Moreau, Joy DeGrew, Erica Batdorf, William Smitty Smith, Muhammad Al-Samawi, Masood Olufani, Louis Venters, Paul Hanley, Susan Grammage, Andy Grammer, Nanabal Bullman, and a host of other tremendously self-realized and accomplished artists, scholars, teachers, business people, and thinkers fly the flags of hope for our species and our planet. Now for the challenging part. The negative emotions that inevitably emerge are a mixture of danger at the prospect of never telling my own worthwhile story to a wide enough audience that certain souls who really need to hear it could hear it. Of pure basic envy, a killer emotion that I consider the deepest depth of ignorance, but which nevertheless lurks. Of sadness at, again, being omitted from the grand guest list of the worthy, and finally, shame at the idea that I would just succumb to self-pity, resentment, and complacency. Synthesis. I created this blog in December of 2013 to process some personal struggles I was going through at the time, with a few private posts that I would place in the category of writing as therapy. In the years since, I regularly would feel, often faintly, that regardless of whether I was ready, I ought to begin to write. Write I did, mostly in the form of long Facebook posts and comments, which I have archived with the intention of turning them into a book someday. My major themes have dealt with three issues that concern me the most, namely racism in the U.S., renewal of religion in the postmodern age, and governance. While the first of these, racism, has become trendy again and has gained some traction in public discourse, in the wider social sphere, I see little new interest in the crucial role of religion in society or the vital need for reimagining how we administer societal affairs through government. When I survey the topics covered by Rainn's guests, I find every one of them essential to preserving human life on the planet, preserving the planet itself, and taking the spiritual leaps necessary to carrying forward an ever-advancing civilization. I have resolved today to begin to synthesize my life experience in writing and to offer it humbly to the world in the hopes that I might find the audience that needs to hear these stories. I also encourage you to believe in the worth of your own story and to write it down and begin to share it. I begin prior to finding myself in a state of highest refinement of virtue, but at 58, it seems to me I'd better get started, warts and all. Alawapa, friends.